So this is a person that was respected. He was on archaeological digs with Professor Richard Atkinson, and he said one of the stones, one of the trilithons, that's the two big stones with one on top at Stonehenge, could produce water magically, even in a drought. Yeah. And when I started to research that particular stone, it originally had a hole that you could put your arm in. It went down about 2 feet at an angle.
Wow.
Okay, so I could put my hand, my arm, in effect, in there, and the water was said to be healing.
Welcome to New Earth Podcast, where we dive into inspiring stories, profound wisdom, and insights from remarkable individuals who are driving the consciousness shift on our planet. If you're ready to elevate your awareness and well-being, you're in the right place. But before we dive into today's episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. Together, we'll continue to explore the ideas and conversations that help you up-level your consciousness. Thank you so much for your support and your comments and for being part of this journey. Hello and welcome back to New Earth Co-Creators. Today we have the most wonderful guest, Maria Wheatley, who is a dowser, an author, and a leading expert on Earth's energies. She was taught to decode the land by her late father, Dennis Wheatley, one of Britain's top Master Dowsers, and her work explores the powerful forces that flow through the earth, the ley lines, the underground waters, and standing stones in places like Stonehenge. Her latest research focuses on the sound frequencies of earth energies and stones, exploring the very fabric of the landscape. So welcome, Maria. So delighted to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
And it's a lovely synchronistic meeting, because I first connected with Maria last year at the Portal to Ascension conference, where she was talking about the hidden history of Stonehenge. And recently, when at Stonehenge, I felt guided to pull one of the guides aside and ask if she knew of Maria Wheatley's work. And she said she was here yesterday. So I took that as a cue to get in contact with Maria and invite her on the podcast. So thank you so much for coming to talk with us all today. Shall we start really with the basics of, for people not familiar, what is dowsing and how do you work with the Earth's energies?
Well, dowsing is really the art of being able to find something, but more importantly, being able to interpret what you find. Anyone can walk around with dowsing rods and their cross, but what have I found? So I teach how to interpret the earth, how to decode your house, because Gaia, Mother Earth, she can release toxic energies in the form of straight lines that some people get confused with ley lines. She emits lays, and she emits powerful earth energies, really powerful. Some are healing, some are alchemic, some can be completely transformative and even guide us to our soul's divine purpose. So I have written about earth energies, and I've decoded places like Stonehenge. Most of the guards know me there because I take so many people around Stonehenge, as I have been doing so for about 30 years now. So it's all about, for me, looking at an ancient site or looking at somebody's home and decoding it for the earth energies that are present.
You know, we're familiar with ley lines and the earth currents, but we perhaps don't understand all the different types of earth energies. Can you just explain a little bit more about the kind of earth energies we find, particularly at sacred sites, and maybe why those sites were chosen because of their earth energies as well?
That's right. The ancestors were looking for particular types of energy at a location, not just one thing, like the multitude of different lines coming in. They wanted the living aspect of the earth. So let's go to Stonehenge, because you mentioned that earlier. The ancients realized that beneath that ground is a particular type of water. This water is independent of rainfall. It has nothing to do with rainfall that most people call ground water. It's water that is born within the womb of Gaia, independent of rainfall. And where that water is born, and it could be a lake, it could be a spring, we call that yin water, and that emits a really powerful form of earth energy in a spiral pattern that's called a geospiral. So wherever you go, it could be Teotihuacan in Mexico, it could be the Giza Plateau of the Great Pyramid fame, or it could be Stonehenge or Avebury, you're going to find that spiral pattern at the center, what we call the esoteric center of place. So that's one of the most powerful and healing forms of earth energy that I have measured with professionals, and it's around about 7 hertz. It puts your brain, it's called entrainment, entrains your brain to go into alpha, relaxed, healing mode. So that's why we feel good at ancient sites. The earth energies are generating this powerful force and we're interacting with it. Okay, so that's one type of earth energy. Another type of earth energy are male and female earth currents, like yin and yang earth currents, and they can help us in different ways that I can touch upon if you want in a moment. Then you get these earth currents, and this is one of my favorites. It's quite rare, but when it is in the landscape, it is completely dynamic, and that's a hermaphrodite current.
Oh, wow.
That is neither male or female and brings us into balance really easily. So just imagine you're entering a line, you're on an earth current, and boom, you come into your male and female balance. That's the power of the earth in a hermaphrodite type of energy. And there are many, many others besides that, but they're the fundamental ones that you're probably going to find at ancient sites. Oh, and the other type of earth energy that I adore is emergence energy. When an energy emerges from the land, it's born within the land. So some earth currents aren't global. Some are. Some go around the world, and like Mary and Michael of Hamish Miller fame, who forwarded my first book, and I doused with all of these dowsing greats. They go around the world. But imagine now you're in the heart of the Giza Plateau. You're at the Great Pyramid. You've got the King's Chamber and the Queen's Chamber. A male and female current are born. They emerge in that pyramid and then go worldwide. So these emergence points can allow us to have new beginnings, to change the past, bring in the future. They're places where we can literally change aspects of ourselves easily and dynamically because we're in harmony with the earth upon which we live.
This is, I got goosebumps when you were talking about the emergent energy. That was just, it was something I hadn't heard of. I'd heard of all the others. I mean, the yin water is completely fascinating because most of us have only heard of, water coming from the sky, not water being birthed from the womb of Mother Earth. And I'd love to talk with you more about that healing potential of that yin water, and how that then changes as we are predominantly water as well, how that interacts with our being. You mentioned also in terms of the masculine and feminine, and how that then kind of creates coherence within our own system, the masculine and feminine balance, particularly within our nervous system, which again is the nervous system from a Chinese medicine point of view, is our waters. So I'm really fascinated to explore the healing potential of these energies.
Yes, I've been working with body water and large volumes of water of the earth for many, many decades now. For example, when we are above that spiral pattern, which is roughly speaking, not always, but as a rough guide at the center of a sacred site or just off the esoteric center of place, where the ancients would put a standing stone up, for example, like the altar stones at Stonehenge or the obelisk stone at Avebury. They're central stones. They don't mark the geometric center, they mark the esoteric center. Okay, now we're above that large volume of water. Imagine a lake way, way down, miles down. And I've been saying this for 30 years, that on any rock planet can produce water. So therefore you're going to find water on Mars. And they found that 11 miles down. Okay,
Yeah.
on Mars. That's NASA. Now, in the ancient landscape here and on the Giza Plateau, you've got this very, very deep water. It's rotating. So imagine a spiral that's rotating, okay? And it changes its rotation within particular phases of the moon. And you stand in that energy zone. You don't have to be right on one of those spiral lines, so to speak. It could be anywhere within that zone. We are made up of a lot of water. Okay. And then I'm a druid as well. So, and I come from a family of, magicians, for example. So I would always ask permission to work with earth energies. And the easiest way to do that is literally stand in an energy zone, like at the center of a stone circle, and ask with graciousness, can I work with you? And most people feel force pulling them forward as a yes.
Mm.
Okay, then you've been granted permission by the earth energy. And these are feminine earth energies, the underground water, because water's a feminine element. So we can then imagine and visualize and attune to that wonderful earth energy coming out of the internal waters and coming up through your own body waters and up through the chakras, and then kind of back down and cleansing and refreshing and regenerating one's being. So that's one way, a very simple way that you can work with the energy. And to esoteric water diviners of ancient fame, it's the light in the water that is all healing. So if you imagine now that you're on this massive amount of underground yin water and there's a light coming up through it, and that light is the divinity of the elemental of water. So it's like the elemental force of it, which some druids call undines, odines. They're like water elementals. And then you're working with these gracious beings as well. And what else is an esoteric property of water?
Memory. It holds
Memory.
memory.
Memory. So now, with that simple principle that we are going to work with that underground yin water, we are working with the Akashic memory of place. So
Oh,
when
how
you
beautiful.
yeah, when you're working with these type of energies, this is what I do worldwide, taking people all over the world to ancient sites. We're working with the Akashic memory of place. Now, you may or may not know that I discovered the elongated skulled people of Stonehenge and elsewhere. I did that through attuning to the power of place, the memory of place, and dowsing. And the next minute, I was at Cambridge University photographing these long skulled people. So we can literally tune into the past. One of my wonderful experiences of being a tour guide was with Dolores Cannon. Okay, I was her tour guide for quite some time.
Amazing.
Yeah, I know. I look back.
I had
So
Sarah Breskman Cosme on. I don't know if you've come across her. She's a past life regression as well, and she's done a lot about the hypnotist journey into Avalon and Atlantis and stuff like that. It's absolutely fascinating stuff, isn't it?
absolutely, I've done that. That's why Dolores chose me. I was qualified in past life regression in 1996, and I specialize on sacred sites. And I've done a lot of work on media with Atlantis and other places besides. It's all very fascinating, and everybody adds their knowledge into the pool of wisdom, my cauldron of wisdom, as I call it. So we can work with ancient sites on many, many different levels, and that's what I kind of did with Dolores. We can work with the Akashic record of place, not knowing anything about hypnotherapy. You don't need to know anything about hypnotherapy. You just tune in to the power of the earth energies in the land, and that can ripple out its ancient memories of place and what is experienced, for example. So I find that really fascinating, taking people to those sites and listening to their experiences without the knowledge of anything.
Because ultimately it'll be activating their past life experience with that place. But also what interests me is that, there are layers and layers of memories with these sacred sites, and some of which have been suppressed, but we ultimately can still potentially tune into some of those ancient layers around why it was built. I know when you spoke about Stonehenge, you spoke about how there was healing water coming up through one of those stones. So is that phantom still there? Can we tune into that? Even though we don't necessarily physically receive that water, we can energetically still receive it, and some of those imprints, which is absolutely incredible.
When I don't think the earth energies suppress anything. I think man and women do
That's
that.
what I meant.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And because that's the wonder now, we're in a freedom place. And my work at Stonehenge, for example, was through. I inherited the unpublished manuscripts and books and diagrams of Master Dowsers going back to
Amazing.
1899. Okay, on ancient techniques of water divining. And in the 1940s, there was a very famous Master Dowser that went to Stonehenge, and he left in my legacy archive that I inherited from my dad, basically, notes of the curator that spent 25 years of his life as guardian of Stonehenge. Yeah. So this is a person that was respected. He was on archaeological digs with Professor Richard Atkinson, and he said one of the stones, one of the trilithons, that's the two big stones with one on top at Stonehenge, could produce water magically, even in a drought. Yeah. And when I started to research that particular stone, it originally had a hole that you could put your arm in. It went down about 2 feet at an angle.
Wow.
Okay, so I could put my hand, my arm, in effect, in there, and the water was said to be healing. And if we go back to the 12th century of Geoffrey of Monmouth, he wrote a book called The History of the Kings of Britain. It's famous. He introduced the world to Merlin, and King
Oh,
Arthur,
wow.
for example. And what Geoffrey of Monmouth said in the 12th century was this: no stone at Stonehenge doth not have healing power.
Mm.
So everybody, right up into modern times, thought that this was a healing center. Now we're at that stone. It's got a 2-foot hole in it. It fills up even in a drought, according to our curator, and it could heal eczema, what they used to call the falling sickness, which was epilepsy, and it could heal a multitude of wounds, etc., etc. And sadly, in the 1950s, under the direction of the Ministry of Works. There was no English heritage then, no National Trust. It was a government department called the Ministry of Works. They infilled it with plastic and concrete. But when you're in the energy zone, like the auric field, just imagine like an auric field of a stone. Yeah,
Yeah.
it has ripples of power, like throwing a stone into a pool. You've got that behind you, so that's a perfect analogy. And stones can do that to create an energy field. Then once you're in that energy field by that stone, you can still feel the energy, the healing energies and waters, energetically speaking. Yeah. So,
Yes.
you can place your rings in there. You could replace even if you put a bottle of water over that spiral pattern, over those,
Amazing. Yeah.
you are
Yeah.
charging anything up with the power of place. And that's some of the wonders of the standing stones. They're like an acupuncture needle, and they're hitting that meridian line, and then they're sending energy outwards. Yeah. So megalithic energy is even more powerful than earth energy because it's now transmitting it.
Yeah, I wanted to speak with you about that, the actual power of the stones themselves, and how that then is interacting with the earth energies, which are particular at these sacred sites. Can you talk about the power of the stones?
I love talking about the power of the stones, Sarah, because I've got one in my back garden that's doing exactly the same as one at Avebury. Because we can do this, we can repeat what the ancestors did in our own houses, backyards,
Mm.
gardens, etc. So let's say we're on a female earth energy current. Yeah. And we've put our stone bump onto that meridian line. Then the stone does several things, and it's a wonder. And one of those wonders is that it will, and I've discovered this and proved it about 20 years ago now, is that if you imagine the stone has, pretend my pen is a standing stone, and wrapping around it is 7 energy bands. 2 are below the ground, 5 are above, equating to our chakra system. Okay. And when I measured with a team, I doused it first of all and said, this is the energy band here, and this is the energy band here. And they put their equipment up the stone. It was coming out exactly the same places. The sound of the stone, infrasound, meaning you can't hear it at those exact chakra points. Okay, so the stone can balance us out. And the frequency of one of those energy bands was 18 hertz. We hear at 20. And I suggest that our ancient ancestors who had long skulls and ear placement in a different position could hear the stones.
Right. That's interesting. So what interests me, with sites like Stonehenge with absolutely massive stones, there's legends about was sound used to actually move the stones, and you saying that about the ancients perhaps being able to hear it. I know when I looked at your research that one of the 7 bands of frequencies was able to change weight. You observed that one of your colleagues had got 2 stone heavier, connecting with that energy, and I think you got lighter. Do you believe that was something the ancients knew about and perhaps even used it in terms of moving the stones?
I've got my own take on moving the stones, as everybody has. Yeah. But in my research to try and prove what I say, because any of us can say, oh, we can use light, we can use sound, but how, when, and how? So that's where I come in and I say, I'm going to try and prove that or disprove it, be unproven. I'm a research author, so I go where the truth is. What I noticed about a male and female earth currents is that they have an energy band like the stones in them that we recorded by putting copper probes down. I couldn't do that now. You can't do that anywhere in the world now. Yeah. That's how restricted it's getting. And through those frequencies being recorded on a laptop, it came out at one of which came out at 25 hertz. Now, if you want the frequency of levitation, that's at 25 kilohertz. It's much faster than 25 hertz. Yeah, imagine it just spinning a bit faster. Well, I think the ancients could manipulate the earth currents that all flow into the ancient sites by sound frequency, and they could hear these different frequencies and knew where they were. We've got some of us have got a disconnect, but when you kind of reconnect the male, the energies, the female, the hermaphrodites, the spirals, the emergence points that come out like a Fibonacci spiral of power, I believe that's where the Fibonacci spiral came from. It wasn't just Pythagoras's mind or Plato's mind, it was in the earth, and they experienced it that way. And I was one of the first dowsers to show what that energy pattern look like, for example. So it's a multitude of different ways of working with sacred sites, energies, and sound frequencies at these sites as well.
I'd like to share a personal experience because I recently went round a lot of the sacred sites, and I just wanted to sound in them. To me, it was like, like the blue stones, like humming. It was like it brought them alive. And then in Avebury, I observed that each stone, I wanted to make a different sound. There was a different kind of tone that was coming out. So I just wondered whether that was an inbuilt part of these sacred sites, particularly around the Somerset, Wiltshire area, that they are activated and come alive. They were sound temples that the ancients used. They used to tune their instruments to it, and their ceremonies very much geared around that sound.
Absolutely. What I've written about in The Secret History of Stonehenge, banned by the Stonehenge shop at English Heritage, is exactly that. I figured out that, say you've got a spiral pattern or lots of concentric circles, what Pythagoras and Kepler did, they called it the music of the spheres. Yeah, they realized that one of those circles' diameter to another circle diameter, a bit like the pool behind you, equates to musical harmonics. Okay, now I had the intuition to say, okay, if those guys can do it to the orbital circles of the planets, which legend says Pythagoras could hear, and Kepler, an ancient astronomer, tells us the soul can hear. Okay, I thought, why not do it at Stonehenge with all those concentric? There's 6 circular features at Stonehenge. You're seeing the remnants of just a few when you go there today. So what I did, I set to work, got all of the musical harmonics at Stonehenge and many other sites besides. So when you're at Stonehenge and you're between the big outer stones and the smaller blue stones, that's a circle. The precision of that diameter is equates to the major third in music. Now, the major third in music was used by Christian churches. It was used in many other religious institutes as well, because it allows you to become emotionally heightened and open. We've lost a disconnect with music. So, for example, if I was around Mozart's era and I said, I'm going to play in the key of A flat, everybody would go, oh, who's died? That's the mourning tone.
Okay.
The Masons would say, I'm going to play in E flat. That's because it gives you conversations with God. So all of those musical harmonics that I discovered at Stonehenge and Avebury and elsewhere put you into that musical tone. And I think the ancients knew that. And they sung to that tone. Like at Woodhenge, that's for women's voices. So I think that was a priestess temple, for example. So yeah, you can have great fun by going into a stone circle and do it in harmony with it, or just sing. I go around the world with loads of people that just burst forth into song, and that's a beautiful experience, especially if you're by the power stones. What do I mean by the power stones? At Avebury and Stonehenge, a lot of them were re-erected and set in concrete. And if you go to the stones that are in situ, that haven't been re-erected in concrete, they are incredible. And people can feel the difference. If I put them by one stone and say, how do you feel about this stone? And then to another stone, they go, bingo. This stone has got something. Yes, it's in situ.
Amazing. Wow, so much knowledge. I'd love to return to, we kind of missed something earlier on, and that was, you spoke about the emergent energies, and I'd just love to talk about that, because this is New Earth podcast, and we're exploring the consciousness shifts that we're all experiencing, and those shifts are happening within Gaia. And I just wondered whether you are experiencing more of these emergent energies, you know, because obviously you've been working with this for many years and you've got the history of it. Are there more coming through with the increased solar flares and energetics that we're going through at this very important astrological time?
They've always been there. This is the wonderful thing about Gaia. She's 4 billion years old. She's always had these particular areas that she has been releasing the major energies, giving birth to the major energy points, for example. So I think they've always been there. Yeah. But then I think, you know, on different levels of the earth, you know, like on the astral level, on the mental level, on her energy field, the white light field surrounding Gaia that many people perceive that as, that is changing. So on a kind of a little bit of a higher level, so to speak, that is definitely changing. Solar flares coming in affect the male currents. Yeah, because they're solar orientated, whereas anything that happens like more on the lunar level, that influences the female earth currents a little bit more. So the yin times of the year in the festivals like Samhain, they're the yin times of the year. The solstices are the yang time of the year. The earth responds to that. It
Yes.
responds to all of those different elemental times. And with the deep water, for any listener that wants to go to Avebury or Stonehenge at the centre, it's not at the new and full moon where these earth energies change their rotation. Remember our spiral that's rotating? It's 6 days after a new or full moon. And that's when all the ancient druids would pick their mistletoe 6 days after the new moon. They wouldn't
Okay.
do it on the new or full moon
Oh,
because
really?
that's the most powerful time. And even if you look to stories of Stanton Drew Stone Circle, the second largest stone circle in Somerset, they move and go down to the river to drink 6 days after full moon. They're recalling in folklore that they're above that underground water. And it's the sixth day where they go down to the River Chew and drink, for example.
That's so completely fascinating. Earlier on, you mentioned the disconnect that a lot of us have had from the earth energy, and part of that was by design. We became a more patriarchal society and less connected with Mother Earth. How would you guide people to make those first steps to reconnect with these earth energies and allow that to kind of inform their life? And particularly, I've just recently moved part-time to Glastonbury area. So if you are having the privilege of living in an area where there are a lot of sacred sites, how would you honor the lands and connect with that place on a daily basis?
On a daily basis, I think it's very simple. My druid side would say always reach out before you even go to a stone circle, the day before. Okay, or a couple of days before, you reach out and tell that site you're coming. You ask the ancestors for permission, the spirit of place, and the guardian. The guardian is one of the most kind of powerful, energetic energies around that place. So I reach out, even if I take a group to Avebury or Egypt, weeks before, I'm reaching out. Do you see what I mean? And telling them what I'm going to do. Then I always say my intent about what I'm going to do at this ancient site. Am I going to bring people to dowse? Well, that's what I'm going to do. Or if people want to sing, if people want to chant, tell the site what you're going to do. Because it's a bit like, I give this analogy to some of my students, Sarah. If I went into your house, went straight upstairs, started shuffling around in your drawers, you'd be going, what's that woman doing? Well, sometimes sacred sites feel like that. But
Yes.
if they're told beforehand, and you're asking permission, then the earth energies kind of come out more to greet you. And it's
Yes.
this greeting mechanism. So I would say, yeah, reach out, tell the site what you're going to do. Try to, use maybe your hands. You don't have to know how to douse, and just be guided to where to go. But more importantly, before you go into the site, stop. Take a couple of deep breaths, and the wonders about ancient sites, and this is really close to my heart, is there's always a cleansing area. It's called the cleansing stone. And imagine that you're by the cleansing stone. It cleanses you of all of your emotional baggage before you enter. So that when you do enter a sacred site and you've interacted with that particular stone or that area or whatever, you're clearer. And if you don't know where that place is, imagine that you do and that you're cleansing yourself. You sort of, you don't have to know where that is. You can say, I'm going to cleanse, I'm going to do this before I enter. Then the guardian kind of awakens and may even greet you.
How beautiful. Thank you so much for your wisdom today. Is there anything else that we've missed that you feel is important to share with our listeners?
Well, go out to an ancient site, follow that little spiritual protocol, and whatever you're guided to do, do that. And then when we've left an ancient site, leave nothing behind. The ancients didn't have amethyst at those times, they didn't have rose quartz, they only used certain crystals. Leave behind no trace, just the love from your heart, and
Mm.
that's good enough.
Oh, that's interesting because a lot of people go to sacred sites and bury crystals, but you're recommending something completely different.
Most dowsers and geomancers say that they would be taken out anyway by English heritage if they do a dig. It's because they didn't resonate with those particular types of crystals. I'm not saying not do that. I'm saying if that's what somebody wants to do, but we leave behind no trace. The earth is very powerful. Her energies are going to be living long, long after us, and they've been continuing to do that. They can self-heal. They can self-regulate, just like your body can self-heal, so can Gaia's. And man and women sometimes feel, oh, my input is really important. Yes, it is, but Gaia will be there long after we've gone. So just leave love.
That's very interesting because, in a way, you're when we're going to sacred sites, you're talking about stating your intentions. But my understanding from what you're saying is it's not really a doing experience so much. It's a listening experience whereby we are integrating that wisdom rather than trying to, activate something or do something, because the earth knows how better to do that than we do, really.
Exactly. And that's what I say, that one liner, the earth knows better. And if we listen, rather than I could go then and say, I can do this, Sarah, I can do that, all me, me, me. Whereas if I go to an ancient site and I just listen, what is it you want?
Mm.
What do you want me to do? Rather than telling the earth what you're going to do, if you just listen. And it's wonderful and it's beautiful. And sometimes you'll get crazy things. It's not always, simple and healing. It might ask you to reconnect it to another site. It might
Yes.
want you reconnecting to the ancestors, to a particular star in alignment, to the sun, to the moon. So it can take you way beyond where you think your path is taking you. But then, just to be clear, that's how I do things, and how a lot of geomancers, people that work with the earth, do it. But if you feel that that's what anything you want to do at an ancient site, I'm not here to dictate anything, just to kind of give a bit of guidance of how you can benefit from these ancient sites and then replicate them in your home, as I've done with my standing stone outside, resonating sound frequencies. We haven't had time to touch on sound frequencies, but they're an integral part of the ancient sites as well.
Let's touch on it a little bit now, because we do have a few more minutes. I don't know if you've got time to just talk a little bit more about sound frequencies.
Okay, so I've discussed that the diameters of circular features can generate musical harmonics. Yeah, and the ancients were fully aware of that. They were sound temples where they placed a stone. For example, at Stonehenge, you've got the stone circle, you've got the heel stone, which is just outside of Stonehenge. Yeah, world
Yes.
famous. Anyone can Google that and have a look. That's particularly placed there to bounce off any sound that you do. Yeah. So it
Okay.
bounces the sound back. Now, if you're at Stonehenge and you take a drum with you, Maria's top tip would be in between the lintels, the outer stone circle. And if you do a drum beat and you'll buy a blue stone, two will come back, double the amount, like
Okay.
that. So you could use sound like that, which is really fascinating. And I discovered that at other ancient sites as well. So it can increase drum beats, it can bounce your voice back. And then what I discovered, to just touch upon, is that when the stone is in an earth energy. It doesn't matter what that earth energy is. It could be a current, it could be whatever. And you put that stone in it. Not only does it have the seven chakras coming up, but it ripples out energy. And on those energy bands, imagine circles, a bit like what I mentioned earlier, your circular put a stone into the water, circles, ripples. Each one of those ripples, I've discovered, has a different sound frequency.
Oh, really? How
Yeah, so
interesting.
for one of those sound frequencies, for example, the nearest one to the stone is 133 hertz. And 133 hertz, for example, is really healing. Which, when we think about it, I think the ancients knew this because I think they could interact with the site differently than what we do today. So the power of the stone is a little bit away from the stone. So
Yes.
I think that whether priestesses and priests and people gathering alike would create circles around the standing stone, replicating where the ripples are. And I've done that recently with a whole Italian dowsing group, and we all felt where those energy zones were. They're easy to find. You don't have to know about them. You just kind of walk away from the stone. You see what I mean? With your back towards the stone and start walking, and you'll be hitting one of those sound frequency energy bands, which I proved through recording that sound within the earth. It's indisputable. That's what standing stones do. So they're more powerful because they're generating that earth energy. Now they're transmuting it to sound. Do you see what I mean? So they're
Yes.
making a different form of energy by being plugged into that energy grid. And our ancestors left that for us. And we can
Oh,
go and experience that. So I always, always thank the ancestors. And the day that I discovered the Neolithic High Queen of Stonehenge that had that elongated skull changed my life.
oh, really? You just connected with the ancestry, the meaning behind it all. Did you get lots of downloads from that?
Absolutely. That's why I wrote The Secret History of Stonehenge, because I was being guided by the long-headed Neolithic High Queen. And she asked of me when I was on her barrow to find her child. For example, that's what I mean. When you start listening to a
Okay.
place, I never thought
Yes.
I would be on that barrow, discover the long lost, long skull people. That wasn't what I went there for. Believe you me, it wasn't for that at all. Next minute, visions of these long skulled people. I had to find them. I had to track her down. I did that. I realized that they had slightly different chakra systems. And then I was on a mission for her. Became a voice for her long lost people.
How
And
beautiful.
and it was a journey. It was a journey that made me have laughter moments, crying moments, frustrating moments with museums. Oh, Lordy. But at the end of the day, I just listened to what it was she wanted. She was the keeper of that land, not me. She
Mm.
came before me. It was her people that built those mounds and the phase 1 of Stonehenge, for example. And it led me to realize that the first phase of Stonehenge, which is just 56 blue stones going around in a circle, was aligned perfectly to Corona Borealis. That's a kind of a starry constellation in the sky. So the first phase of Stonehenge at the spring equinox linked to that star, and she was the Celtic goddess of reincarnation. So I think phase 1 of Stonehenge was a temple dedicated to reincarnation
Oh,
through
really?
Ariane Rod, that's her Celtic name. Her Greek name is Corona Borealis. So yeah, so again, it led me to discover a star system linking in with reincarnation, thankfully to the Neolithic High Queen.
I think you rediscovered it. I'm getting goosebumps again. I feel like you were there, you were part of that whole history.
Yes, lots of people have said that. I really do feel intuitive, but the main thing is talking about that. You've hit the nail on the head. I love you for that. Uh, when I started to discover what were the Bronze Age women and men wearing, what did they look like? Because nobody in England, we all know what Nefertiti looked like, we all know what Cleopatra looked like, but what did my ancestors look like? So I went on a mission to uncover what they were wearing. And this is why I think past lives is future lives.
Yes.
I realized that they had spacers in their ears of black jet. They
Oh,
had tattoos. They loved
wow.
tattoos. And for example, that they would have lip piercing here,
Oh,
nose
really?
piercing. Yeah, and spacers, tattoos. You're talking Gen Z. When I told my daughter Raven, this is what they look like, she said, "You're describing us, Mum." So I think
Amazing.
the
Yeah.
Bronze Age people are reincarnated. We're
Yeah.
here
New Earth
today.
children
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
At this
exactly.
time, past life, future line, the now point, and that connection, reconnection with Mother Earth in the now moment. That's how beautiful is that?
Yeah, yeah. So the past is closer to us than what we think because nobody addressed what they were wearing. And just that one simple listening point. What was I wearing? Oh, what were you wearing? You know, what were you wearing? What did you look like? I'll find out. I'll do that for you. And then I realized that it's Gen Z. They've reincarnated to make better the earth again.
It's really interesting because just yesterday my daughter told me, she's 16, she told me she wanted a nose pierce, and I kind of, part of me is like, just wait a little bit, but maybe, that's part of her. It's deep, it's not just, it's not cosmetic, it's much deeper, that
I,
feeling within her.
I think it is. And the more of the younger people that I've taken around us, I take a lot of young people around. I don't just take, people my age around. And once I tell them, I got pictures in my book, well, this is what they look like. And I can show them photographs of black spaces in their ears. I can show them the jewelry that they were. That's what I like. That's what I was going to buy. Just what I mean, that instant connection, that was me then. And here
Mm.
am I now. And that's where I think we can come in and guide these beautiful young people to explore it a little bit deeper, a step at a time, baby steps, as I always call it with the earth. And the next minute, bang, they've reconnected, really, truly reconnected.
It's been wonderful actually moving to the Glastonbury area with my daughter, because we've been going to places, and I ask her, and like the Magdalen Chapel, for example, in Magdalen Street, she felt a
Mm.
lot there, and she said she was getting visions and all sorts. And I just try and not say too much, just to see what she's feeling, and so there's that site in particular she really really connected with. So it's very beautiful, isn't it?
Absolutely, and this is we live on the earth. We're here every day, and if we tread a little bit lightly, think about having less of an impact, more of a grace, more of an interaction, then I think we're on the way for leaving behind a legacy for your children, your children's children, and so the line goes on, and it does come from the people that built these monuments that have left us and gifted us the monuments of yesterday for today.
That's so powerful. I feel quite emotional. Thank you so much for
Oh,
your
you're
wisdom,
welcome.
for everything that you're bringing through. It's incredibly beautiful and powerful work. How can people find you, Maria? I'm going to put your links in the show notes.
Mm. Well, people can find me at my teaching platform, which is esotericcollege.com. Oh, I do a multitude of different courses, Zooms, one-to-ones, tours. You can find out about my tours that I do at the Avebury Experience.co.uk. I'll be going to Mexico in March, back to Egypt next November. And because I've been going there for 10 years, I've got the deal of deals. So that will be on my website pretty soon, making it affordable for anyone to go to ancient Egypt. And I have lots of fun activities as well, taking people around Templar churches, decoding Avebury. And we have some great adventures together, hand in hand and heart in heart.
Oh, I would be definitely looking at your website. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for listening today. It's been a wonderful journey connecting with these ancient sites and earth energies. Many blessings. Bye for now.